And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Now, if you guys don't know, every Thursday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I go live, and I guess you can say consistency has been pretty good for me, at least on that. So every Thursday of this year, 2024, I have gone live. This was the very first night that I had to push the live about 45 minutes just so I could watch the end of the Yukon game. It was a good game. Yukon, blew them out again. Looks like Yukon. I mean, they're my pick to win the national championship, obviously. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to, have a little conversation with you because, the same way as I talk about consistency with just making a video every Thursday night, I titled this video purposely, "Luck Don't Fail Me Now," and there's that old saying. It's when uh, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And all that means, and I thought about it in Pokemon, it's like, well, how lucky we are all the time, but it's not just luck, right? It's a lot of preparation and opportunity. And you can go back as recently as my very last live. I talked about the reprints for Pokemon 151. I was probably one of the earliest channels to actually start to talk about that reprint. I know a lot of channels has picked it up since then, and a lot of that is just talking about preparation, and then when your opportunity comes, you take advantage of it. And the same way as we talked about 151 is when those reprints happen, which they haven't happened yet. At the time recording this video is March, and we need to wait a few months till May for those reprints to happen and for the prices to really go down on a lot of this product. And that's why right now I already suggested it. Like, if you need to get liquid for this, now's your time. You got a couple months. Have, some liquid capital, and then when prices go down, depending on where they go, then you're going to have your huge opportunity to enter into these. And I think that's just, to be honest with you, that's a lot of Pokemon. A lot of Pokemon is just preparation and opportunity. The problem is sometimes you miss a lot of stuff when you're just preparing, and maybe you never get your opportunity. Maybe you never get that good buying like entry point. But the ones that you really don't see great entry points are so few and far between when you think about it. There are obvious examples of those, don't get me wrong, but there are so many things in this hobby where if you're patient, you're going to get your opportunity for close to 75% of all things in this hobby. And especially when you're talking about reprints, so expansions, or specialty sets, main expansions, a lot of cards, a lot of promo cards. When you go down the line, there are very few things that you really don't get opportunities for. And you just have to be prepared for when those moments happen. You just have to take advantage of them. I talk about it, God, this is probably about 6 months ago now, but they had the not Lost Origin, excuse me, the Silver Tempest build and battle stadiums on or not Pokemon Center, on GameStop, and Pokemon TCG Drops had posted that link for Silver Tempest, uh, the build and battle stadiums, and I was like, well, for 19.99, I wasn't in the purchase. I wasn't. I'm stumbling all over my words. I wasn't in the market to purchase Silver Tempest Build and Battle Stadiums, but because prices were 19.99, I said screw it. I just took advantage of it, and that was ended up being a great buy. But what I think happened was GameStop just mispriced those. I think they were supposed to just price them for Build and Battle boxes, but they accidentally, because they were Build and Battle Stadiums, just priced them wrong, and a lot of people had those orders canceled. Some people were lucky, but it was just, I guess at that point, it was just luck of the draw because a lot of people bought those out. But that's just a lot of this hobby. And it's a lot of it is in a way like being in the right place at the right time. And I say that in the weirdest sense because right place at the right time is if you're in the hobby right now and you're actively engaged, I really, really struggle with like a better time to be in Pokemon. And a lot of people will say, well, uh, like maybe you don't have. Hold on, let's see. So a lot of people will be like, oh, well, you don't have the great buying opportunities you did in, you know, 2010. And it's like, well, no, you don't have the buying opportunities at the low prices, but like the actual market, the amount of demand that exists out there, the amount of liquidity you now have in Pokemon is so much stronger than any other point in this hobby. So it's still an absolutely fantastic time, and that is just, in a way, just being lucky. Being lucky that whatever like set of events led you down that rabbit hole to be actively engaged in Pokemon. And every single person out there watching this video real time, every single person watching this video after the fact, they're all going to have their own special story of what made them get back into Pokemon. Whether it was just they're walking through their Walmarts in 2019 and they saw Hidden Fates ETB on the shelf and they, for whatever reason, said, I'm going to buy this. Or they got locked in March of 2020 and then they discovered Pokemon because of the pandemic. Or, they re-entered during celebrations because it was a nostalgic set. It had their big chases, the Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur. Or maybe somebody is as recently getting into this hobby because of 151 and those original Kanto Pokemon, and they're just like, I like 151 Pokemon. I didn't even know they were still making Pokemon cards. Let me get into this. So, it just, everybody has their own story. And speaking of story, so I have a few things I want to touch on tonight. If you guys don't remember, or if you guys are new to this channel, I made a video showing Ken Golden on like Home Shopping Network selling the Neo Premium files. So I had one, so I decided to open one up for one of my streams, and I looked at the cards live. We opened up the Neo Premium file, and then I sent them away for grading. So in order to get all 10s, it's 1 in an octillion. Yes, that is an octillion. That's what Ken Golden said. So 1 out of a 1 with 27 zeros after it. That's what, that's quoting Ken Golden. That's your chances of grading all 10s. So these are my hollows that I graded. So Typhlosion hit the 10. For Alligator, it hit the 10. But my Meganium, guys, it only hit the 9. So I guess Ken Golden was right. I only had a 1 in 1 octillion chance, and I wasn't it was too hard. I couldn't get all 10s. I tried. I got 2 of 3. But I guess Ken was right. So it just shows you. Like, yeah. That's still one of the more ridiculous videos in the history of this hobby. But I did get those grades back, so whatever. 2 of the 3 hollows hit a 10. So I guess that's still a win, especially because the Typhlosion hit the 10. It would have been nice to go 3 for 3 and have the Meganium hit the 10. But that just goes to, good condition. Those cards, Japanese print quality, that's early Japanese print quality. You're talking 2020 Media Factory print quality. Those were solid. But speaking of print quality, and speaking of a video that was released today, if you hadn't had a chance to go watch it, I recommend you go watch it. But watch Rusty, TCA Gaming's most recent video where he talked about Troll and Toad. So Rusty had if you guys are familiar with, there's 53 Black Star promos, and like some of the later Black Star promos are a little more nichey, and one of them is the number 51. It's a Rapidash. It's an e-reader card. It had 2 different releases. There was the Rapidash, the 151. There's the one that has the Pokemon Center stamp in it, and then there's another Rapidash that was released in like a Nintendo Power magazine, but it came in like a, I have one over there. It came in like a sealed cellophane thing, and it had the Rapidash and it had a Ho-Ho in it. So, but those were different because that Rapidash doesn't have the Pokemon Center stamp on it, and then obviously the Rapidash that was released in Pokemon Center New York has that Pokemon Center stamp. I don't know. I feel like most people know the original Black Star promos, but then again, maybe not everyone is familiar with those. But either way, I'm going to be honest with you. I always thought those Rapidashes were relatively rare because, in order to get the Pokemon Center one, you literally had to go to Pokemon Center in New York City. You had to physically be there in person. And then, Nintendo Power ones, in order for those to be kept sealed, you would have to have got a Nintendo Power magazine sent to you in the mail. And then as a kid interested in Pokemon, you would have had to not open it and then kept it pristine. And, always had the illusion of those things being like rare. But then you see how many Rusty has. Rusty has like a brick of bricks. Like, and I think his are all the Pokemon Center. Well, they have to be the Pokemon Center ones. They can't be the Nintendo Power Magazine ones because it wouldn't work out for him to have that brick that exists. So his are all the Pokemon Center ones, and he sent just a handful of them away to Troll and Toad, kind of in a way just blindly because at the time Troll and Toad had a pretty high buy list price for those cards, and because Rusty's sitting on a metric ton of them. I mean, trust me, go back, watch his video, and just look. It's like a 500 row box. It's not exactly a 500 row box, but it's, like however they were distributed to Pokemon Center New York. How he got his hands on those, I don't know. It's an awesome product. I mean, so like I said, I always had the illusion that those things were relatively rare, but now that I see how many like promos certain people have, but like that's another thing. Those promos, you don't flood them all onto the market overnight. Those things need to be flooded onto the market. To be honest with you, you don't flood them onto the market. You trickle them onto the market for now until the next 20 years. I mean, that is a card. You grade a handful of them. You price them, to sell, but not to sell instantly. And then you can just do really well doing promos like that. But because Rusty had so many of them, he decided to send a few away to Troll and Toad. And I don't know what happened. And Rusty, to be honest with you, I don't know if Rusty really knows what happened. But if you go and watch his video, Troll and Toad, instead of considering all those cards near mint, which they are, I mean, they're not technically in a pack, but they're as fresh as you can get. They're never... Rusty touching those cards during the video is probably the first person to ever touch those cards. Like, so those things went from WotC, they went to probably Pokemon Center New York, and then nobody ever opened that box, and then it made its way to Rusty. Or maybe Rusty got it from a WotC employee. I don't know. But either way, he's probably the first person that ever even, like, touched those cards. So they're all, near mint condition. Now, are they all PSA 10s? No. Are they all PSA 9s? No, but they're near mint. I mean, keep in mind, near mint is 7 or greater for PSA standards. And for Troll and Toad, if you've ever dealt with any Troll and Toad, like near mint cards, I know personally, I've gotten some really, really questionable, like what could be considered near mint was probably closer to light play. But instead of just paying Rusty the buy list price, which they had, which was like $14 or whatever, they decided to ding them all and just pay them out in a weird way. In their email, they talked about them being damaged. And then they ended up paying them out like the light play price. But the difference between that card and a near mint to a light play is, relatively like substantial. You lose like 66% of the value of that card going from near mint going to light play because, like I told you, most people don't have bricks of 500 of them. Most people, picked them up from Pokemon Center. They went into little kids' pockets, so most of them that exist on the market are in that more light play condition, LP condition. And then the majority of those cards in the near mint don't really exist. And if they do exist, they went directly to grade and they don't really exist in the raw form. So there's a lot that goes on, like just, you got to kind of understand the history of that card a little bit to understand, but like to understand Rusty's lot he has. And it just brings up a lot of like weird questions. And it's, why did Troll and Toad knock those down? And, Rusty just said, I want the cards back, because he knew they were near mint. I mean, they came fresh out of his brick. He knew they were clean. And he's like, all right, well, just send them back to me. He even provided Troll and Toad a packing slip, so Troll and Toad didn't even have to pay to ship those cards back to him. And then they kind of just lost Rusty in the shuffle for whatever reason. And then Rusty had to reach out to the customer support at Troll and Toad, but it doesn't seem like Troll and Toad maybe has that big of a customer support, especially when it comes to their buy lists or anything, because through Rusty's video, he talks about, contacting their representative, and more or less the representative on the other end of the phone made it sound like there was nobody else Rusty could escalate it to, meaning the person he talked to didn't really have a manager above him or somebody that because obviously if you feel you're in the right and you feel that the person you're talking to on the phone can't help you, you hopefully could escalate it to whatever that next level is, whether that's, manager or whatever. and it sounded like it just kind of died there. And when Rusty said he was getting pretty perturbed on the phone, and Rusty said he used the word, he cussed out the guy. What Rusty cussing out somebody versus maybe me or you cussing out somebody? I think Rusty went as far as maybe saying this is bullshit, but I would. It was a very PG form of cussing, but for Rusty to say that, that's wild. I mean that, yeah. I mean, for a man that doesn't ever say that, so you could tell it's frustration, right? And Rusty ended up pulling all his cards out of the Evil program. He said, and it's kind of a big deal, and it's in a way like a slap in the face to Rusty because Rusty has the TCA 5 code. Rattle has a Rattle 5 code. I mean, you would Troll and Toad is a respectable company. So it just brings up a lot of like weird questions of why these cards got docked the way they did get docked, who is reviewing these cards, because Troll and Toad's getting a ton of cards in. And now, I mean, I think this is the danger of the internet. I think you have the danger of people speculating. Like, well, like, and it's going to go to like the more nefarious sense. And it's like, well, if you have a buy list and you are getting thousands of cards every week through hundreds to not thousands potentially, like different sellers, selling to Troll and Toad, selling to their buy list. Well, what happens if, like in Rusty's case, 11 out of the 15 cards went from near mint and they got docked down to light play? So, that's like whatever. A little over 66% of his cards got docked down, so they all went to light play. Well, if you extrapolate that and you say, well, Rusty's just one person sending near mint cards. Well, what happens if you start extrapolating that and you say, well, what if 10 people have their cards devalued, 66%? Well, what happens when 100 people? Well, what if 1,000 people send cards in near mint condition and that same exact situation happens to all thousands of those people? Well, at that point, you're not really just talking about $50 anymore, which is the dollar amount that Rusty had to battle. Well, what happens now if that's 1,000 people and each one of those 1,000 people sent the same 15 cards? And maybe not the exact same, Black Star promo number 51 Rapidash, but the exact same quantity of cards. Well, how much money does that start to add up to? Because in Rusty's case, it went from about $14 a card down to right around $5 a card. So that's $9 per card. So 9 times, so I said 11 cards. So that's $99. Just on that one order that he lost, more or less. Well, you multiply that by 1,000, that's close to $100,000 that Troll and Toad could have potentially saved on having to pay out for their buy list. Well, $100,000, that's a lot of money. And Troll and Toad is getting way more than just those cards. I mean, you ever go on Amazon? Great little play thing you can do is so on Amazon.com, if you just type in Pokemon into the search bar and you search most sold items, it's like a 50 card bulk lot. And then if you look at the seller for that 50 card bulk lot, it's like Golden Groundhog. So Golden Groundhog doesn't really sound like a well-known company. They just deal in bulk. Well, type in the address for Golden Groundhog and then just look at it through Google Maps. They're in the same building, and do you know who is directly next to Golden Groundhog in the building? They like share an office, they share a wall. Yes, it's Troll and Toad. They're in the same exact building, in the same exact office. Troll and Toad is, I don't want to get sued or anything, but like they're related, right? Like they're the a similar company. They probably know each other pretty well. At least we could assume that because they're neighbors in the same building. That Troll and Toad knows Golden Groundhog, who is the biggest bulk seller of cards on Amazon. And I looked at it, I want to say last month, and they had sold 80,000 of those 50 card or 100 card bulk lots. 80,000. That means they're moving through millions of bulk cards a year. Millions. Now, that is just bulk, right? Golden Groundhog. They just, like I said, you go on Amazon, you type in whatever. So, there's a lot of money going through selling bulk. And, 50 card lots, 100 card lots, Troll and Toad's making, a couple bucks per, but when you're doing 80,000 of those a month, assuming even if you're making $1 or two off those 50 card lots because Amazon's going to get their fee, they have to source those bulk cards, they're probably paying, like 2 or 3 cents or whatever the current bulk price. Again, they're paying the higher dollar amount because they're the ones, like, you'll sell your bulk to a game store, and then say you sell your bulk to a game store at 1.5 cents. Well, they're selling their bulk to Golden Groundhog, and Golden Groundhog's paying them 2 cents or 2.5 cents or 3 cents, depending on, what the card is. And then if you want to cut out the middleman, you could just probably go on Golden Groundhog. And I don't know if they have like a buy list of bulk right there, but you could probably like just cut out all the bulk middleman. I don't know why stuff like this doesn't get talked about more. Maybe just the bulk sellers are trying to keep that in their back pocket. But, so they obviously deal in a lot of these cards, but that's just Golden Groundhog. Now, Troll and Toad, they have this buy list, and there's a ton of people that take advantage of the buy list. And why do they take advantage of it? Well, it's the same reason that people sell bulk. Anybody can go through their bulk, and I'm sure if you have a pile of, I'm just going to throw it out, you opened up a couple of the most modern set, you opened up 5 packs, so 5 packs, you got about 50 cards sitting next to you. If you went through those 50 cards, I could damn near guarantee, without even looking at those cards, that a few of those cards are worth 10, 15, 20, 25 cents. Well, you're not going to sell a 20-cent card, and your answer to me is going to be, well, it's probably not worth it. And I'll be like, well, why isn't it worth it? Why don't you want to sell a 20-cent card? And you'd be like, because, I got to list it, and then, even if I pay, charge for shipping, I still got to buy an envelope, and then when everything's all said and done, I make 10 cents after everything because you're going to have to pay for shipping. So you sell the card for 20 cents, eBay gets their little cut, then you got to charge for shipping or whatever, and you're going to be like, I only make whatever. Maybe only make a nickel. Maybe only make 6 cents off that card. You're going to be like, it's not worth my time. But it is worth my time to send that same card that I would have got 5 or 10 cents for after a bunch of work that would have been involved to sell that card. I just send it away at bulk. I get a penny and a half, and I literally just put all the bulk cards on a scale and I weigh it out by the pound. It's so much easier to do that, PK. And then the same way as people like to do that for bulk is the same way that people like to do that for the Troll and Toad buy list. So the question becomes, well, how many cards are Troll and Toad getting for, through this, program? And it's a lot. I just told you that they have enough bulk coming through, ignoring buy lists, through, their Golden Groundhog program, that they can sell 80,000 50 card lots, or 80,000, so it's 80,000 times 50. That's 4 million cards just in bulk. Think about that. 4 million cards. You might have a lot of cards around you right now, but you imagine 4 million of these babies sitting around, and you sold 4 million of them in a month. That's how much bulk they're selling through the Golden Groundhog program. So I know I said, oh, what if they get 100,000 cards or whatever through the buy list? I don't know the numbers. I don't know if Troll and Toad will ever be transparent and will ever tell us, but I can't even imagine how many cards they're buying through the buy list program. And obviously the buy list program, they're already buying it at a lower cost. But if you change the price, like I talked about, Rusty's card going from $14, and now that is being paid out at $5, that is a huge amount of money when you multiply that by 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 cards, or I don't know how many cards go through their entire buy list throughout the course of a year, but it has to be some preposterous amount of money. Because I just told you in 1 month they sold 4 million bulk cards. So multiply that number. So 4 million times 12. That's 48 million cards they're selling just in bulk to, you know, the moms around the country who don't know anything about Pokemon cards, and they just go on Amazon and they search in Pokemon, and that bulk listing is always the very first one to populate. Always. Because it's, like I said, 80,000 sales or 50,000 or 60,000, whatever number it is per month. It's a crazy amount of cards they're moving through. So, it's just, I don't know if people watch Rusty's video, and this is where I'm gonna be honest with you. Like the way I think about stuff, where the average person thinks about stuff, I don't know if the average person watches Rusty's video and they see what happened to Rusty, and then maybe they just go, well, for Rusty, that sucks for Rusty, but maybe he's making a big deal over $50. I feel like that's what the average uninformed person would think. It's $50. Why make a big deal about it? Because I think what people don't understand is when you have a person like Rusty or any of the people that are like the true pillars in this hobby, you don't become a pillar in this hobby doing things in any sort of nefarious, any sort of shady ways. The way you become Rusty is you run your business at the highest level, like whatever the highest level you can run a Pokemon business in this hobby is how Rusty runs it. And the only way you can run it at that high level, there's one thing that is more important than anything else, and that is integrity. And in my opinion, there is not a single person that exists in this hobby with more integrity in this hobby when it comes to Rusty. Like if I were to sell something to Rusty and he was, there's a reason there's a few people in this hobby you could just send stuff to. Just like, hey, would you buy this from me? And if he says yes, you can just send it to him knowing that when he receives that, you're going to get paid out. Like there's no question, there's no ifs. You see all the shady sellers, and sadly this is where the hobby has gone to, especially when you see like, your Instagram sellers, the 5% consignment where they were, paying out people the wrong consignment rates. Like that's shit you don't worry about with a Rusty. Or the same way as, I've openly now spoke about how you know, I'm a backer of James's Z&G Emporium because like I trust James as a person because of like his integrity, and all that is so important in this hobby, and all the people that have like the highest levels of integrity. And we saw what happened recently with James and that unlimited Lugia PSA 10, how ended up finding out it was shill bitted and stuff. And like I have I have a card right here. This is a card that's going to James. Like I have a pile of, it's not a lot of cards. It's only a few that are going to James for consignment because, I like to, especially this is for James's consignment service. Like this is a sweet spot. It's a card that's going to sell for over $100 because you don't have to pay that 5% fee. So like I got a little pile. It's not a big pile. It's a little pile. But it's going to go to James. But like the reason I can blindly send James cards is because I'm not worried about not getting my money. I'm not worried about not getting paid out. I'm not worried about some nefarious thing happening from now until the point he gets that card till he sells it. Like there's no worry about it. But like that's the problem now. So when you have a person like Rusty who runs his business at what I consider like to be the highest level of this hobby, when you have other companies, which Troll and Toad should be running their company at the highest possible level because, you're talking millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars are going through. But you have to now take liberties too when you send them a handful of cards that you've gone through, that you've checked condition, that you believe are near mint. And then they potentially say that, well, the cards you sent me are not near mint. A few of them were, but not all of them. So we're only going to pay out the light play. I think a lot of people are just instantly going to go to, well, Troll and Toad is such a big company. They wouldn't screw me over. And then it's a weird position for Troll and Toad to be in. Was this just a one and done thing? And this is where I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened, but I went down in Rusty's comment section and I read a lot of the comments, and it didn't seem to be like a one off thing where, like, this is the first time this has ever happened, like, in the history of Troll and Toad. Now, this is the problem, and this is the biggest problem you're ever going to find running against stuff like this. The problem is today, will be tomorrow, will be in a month and a year from now when you talk about graded card conditions. Conditions of card is inherently as subjective as it gets. So there can be, two people could look at this same card. One person looks at it and they go, this is near mint. And I could hand this card off to another person and they could look at it and they can say, you know what? I don't think this hits near mint. I think this is light play. That's the thing. It's like, it's super, super subjective. So if you send a bunch of cards to them, you might just be like, you know what? I probably just missed a few things. Maybe they were. And then you start to, double question yourself. It's the same way as when you get a grade back from PSA and you look that card over and you're like, I think this card's a 10, and you get it back and it hits some 6, and then you start to question yourself. You're like, you know what? I must have missed something. I must have missed it. Like, there's no way. I mean, 6s on PSA have the widest ranges ever. Like, you have the most near mint looking 6s that have ever existed. Perfect corners, perfect edges, perfect centering, no scratches on the hollow, but might have the most smallest minute indent that you can barely see with your naked eye, and you literally have to crack that card out of the case, get a great light, and really, really, like, put that card against the light until you find that little teeny dot. And then there are some PSA 6s that look like they went through like a washing machine, and they're the most beat up 6s that exist, but it's like that huge range. But that's what people do, is they go, must have missed something. That's it. Just must have missed something. And then it's the same thing with Troll and Toad. When you send a bunch of cards to Troll and Toad, it's like, I must have missed something. I should have looked at these cards more. And then it just brings up too many questions. It's a conversation that never should happen, right? But when events like this happen and you know where those cards came from, like Rusty showed you the box. I mean, it's one thing for a random person, Joe Smo off the street, to have a shitload of Pokemon Center stamp Black Star promo number 51 Rapidashes. It's one thing for that guy to send. It's another thing for a guy to open up a clean brick, knowing that if he wanted to, he could have sent all those cards to PSA and probably had a high likelihood of 9s or 10s. And there's very little chance of any of those cards coming back less than near mint. So less than near mint at PSA is PSA 6 or lower. So it's an interesting series of events that happen, and it really got my brain thinking about this. I want you to think about it, guys. If you knock down a lot of cards and it was thousands of cards a year, how many hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars a year is that in potential less payouts? If that was happening on a larger scale than just Rusty. Now, if it was just a one and done with Rusty, which it might be, don't know, then it was only, $50 potentially didn't get paid out. But if it was 100,000 cards, more, it could be millions of dollars a year potentially not getting paid out to people, which, if that ever came out, and ended up being true, if there was ever a whistleblower or something comes out of Troll and Toad and was like, yeah, that's exactly what we do, that would have implications. If that was the scenario, which I do not know if that was the scenario, this could just be a one-off, like I mentioned. But if it wasn't a one-off and you had a whistleblower being like, oh yeah, we do this all the time, that would have the implications to be the biggest fraud in the history of this hobby. Far out surpassing any like Blake's Break shit or anything. Blake's Break was like 11 million. You would have the potentials of like millions upon tens of millions. Who knows how much money like their buy list pays out a year. It could be like a preposterous amount of money. But when it's only one person, $50 here, $50 there, it gives you something to think about. I like to think about this stuff. I am not saying that is what Troll and Toad is doing. But it's just weird that Troll and Toad found themselves in this position where people are now even like bringing up this as a potential conversation. Like, well, what if this wasn't a one-off situation? What if this has happened to multiple people on multiple submissions over the course of years, and potentially, if you believe in the future of this hobby and you believe in Troll and Toad, which I don't have a problem with Troll and Toad, if you believe that they're going to be around for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 more years, which I think is pretty high likelihood of that being possible, well, if they're going to be around and that potentially continues to happen over the next decade or 2 decades, in the most nefarious world that could exist, if that was something that was happening, how many millions of dollars is that? It's wild. I don't know. This is what I do. I overthink things. My brain goes in good places. My brain goes in bad places. But I don't know. Listen, I just want you guys to think about it. It's a great thought. Sometimes it's good to play the mental gymnastics and just to have this conversation of like, if it was happening, how much money would that equate? I just told you like the whole Golden Groundhog is selling millions of cards a year. Again, that's bulk. I don't know what how many buy list cards people are getting through Troll and Toad, but it's probably a lot. And a ton of people, because it's an easy out, right? It's this, I'm not going to do the whole rant again, but it's easy to just ship your cards. Like, you don't got to do any work yourself. Assuming those cards are near mint, you're just going to get your quick payout. It's like, wipe your hands of it, you're quick, you're done. All right. So, real quick, Namp90, good to see you, buddy. John Doe, I'm going to go. I didn't see a lot of typing in the chat right now, but if you guys have any questions, now's your time to ask them. I'm going to answer, or I'm going to read through the chat, and then, yeah, I'm going to end this video. Tomorrow's Good Friday, so I probably won't be going live Saturday night. I will be going live, and then, then Easter Sunday. So, Jester Beat says, I slept on the Ghastly when they were a couple bucks on eBay in a short period for master release. Kicking myself now. Yeah, if you go back only 2 videos ago, so last video was the 151, but the one before that was the Temple Forces. And if you look at my screen for most of the live, I would say I had the prices for Temple Forces cards up on my screen, and that Ghastly was one of them. And I mentioned in that video, I said I'm looking forward to going and looking at the prices of Temple Forces in a week from now and a month from now. And one of the reasons I said that was because it felt like buyouts were happening. It felt like there was going to be a lot of demand to these cards. And I think I was kind of right. We're going to go, that's going to be one of the things we're going to do on Saturday. I'm going to pull up my screenshot from my live that I did a few days ago showing those prices, and then we're going to just compare them to what the prices are on Saturday. Because usually prices are supposed to retrace after release, but there's definitely situations where that doesn't happen, and we'll be curious if Temple Forces is one of those. During that live, I talked about that Gengar Full Art only being a $10 card, and I said I felt that card was undervalued at $10, and I said this would be a good card to just buy a bunch of them, because what's your worst case scenario? It drops 50%, it's worth $5 or $4. We'll see what that Gengar card is on Saturday night. It's interesting. So Owlman said, am I saying your name right? A Willman. I opened all 10 of my Silver Tempest build-in battles. I got wrecked. Ooh, that's rough. So 10 build-in battles. Oh, so 10, that's only 40 packs. But Pokemage87 said, PK, what do you think about the Gengar VMAX alt in a PSA 10 near $600? Wow, that's pretty impressive. That was a card you probably still can source raw pretty cheap. So if it's worth it, if it's that much in a 10, you might want to start looking at some auctions. Especially, I would recommend eBay, something where you could see front and back photos of that card and see if it's a 10, because you probably have a ton of money that you can make. I don't know what the raw prices are, but it seems like you probably have a decent margin there. So I would recommend you picking up one or two and just seeing how you do. See if you could hit that 10, because if you get that $600 premium, you probably do pretty well. Um, let's see. So Team Rock said, me and my wife are Scarlet and Violet 151ers. Completed the set just recently, plus one of every sealed product, and that set includes every promo, etc. Sweet. Yeah. So got to keep in mind, if you got one of every promo, you got to have the Squirtle Pokemon Center stamp promo. People forget that. You got to have that. Um, Dollar Mart said, PK, think Korean has a lot of room to grow in the future. It's cheaper, houses and nostalgia backs for U.S. customers, etc. with the right buy in place. Maybe, do you disagree? So, are you confused? Well, obviously there's Korean cards, but you said I don't. You said English backs. So do you mean Chinese cards? But if you mean Chinese cards, I love the thought of Chinese cards. But I mean, if you're going dabbling in Korean, like, I'm not opposed to you dabbling in Korean, but I don't. I think Korean has been around for so long that the market is already so weak on Korean. But there's been a lot of, especially like Eevee Heroes and stuff in Korean. It's done really well because it gives people that cheaper alternative. But I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't know if we're actually accidentally referring to Chinese. Um, So Alex says, I've never had a bad dealing. Anytime something has ever gone wrong, anyone has made it 100% right now. Question, best guy in the hobby in his opinion, most trusted. I think so. He's talking about Rusty. Yeah, Rusty is definitely most trusted person in the hobby. And you could always tell the pillars of the hobby, because if you ask other people that are probably other pillars of the hobby and you ask them, you'd be like, you just blindly go walk up to any pillar of the hobby and say, who's a pillar of the hobby? And they'll probably be the first person everybody says is Rusty. So that's how you know you're on the peak of that mountain. So it's real. It was a real interesting video that Rusty put out. It was I think it's gonna get people talking. The problem is, it only has like 1,200 views on it right now, which is a shame because it's such an important video, and I think it's a video that should be highlighted more. But I don't know. Uh, so Alex says it's very likely they would be okay with screwing somebody for money. Talking about Troll and Toad, it's all a money game, man. LL sounds like a good Rattle investigation. Yeah, I mean, maybe Rattle will deep dive into it, but it's, how do you deep dive into it? That is, you're talking about one person's experience, and then if you talk about one person's experience, it's damn near impossible, right, to be able to interview everyone that could have potentially happened to. And then even if you were to interview people, like, you're always going to get the haters will fill the comments and be like, oh, this happened to me, this happened to me. But even if you had, let's say, 100 people in the comments say, hey, this exact same scenario happened to me, 100 people saying that happened to them is still probably just a super minute, minuscule amount of their entire clientele that have sent cards through that program. So, and it's the same way as you can have somebody on eBay that has a million feedback score, but yet that million feedback seller on eBay is probably as trusted as they get, because you don't get a million feedback score, because to get a million feedback score, you're probably selling 2 million items on eBay. But then even when you look at somebody like that and you look at their feedback score, somebody has a million items sold probably has 100 negative feedback. So that 100 negative feedback is not a representation of a million feedback eBay seller. In fact, if I saw 100 negative feedback on a million score, I would be like, that is fantastic. So, like, that's also the danger, right? So even the people that were come out who would be saying that this happened to me, like, those people could potentially represent such a very, very small minority of all the people that have ever sent to the program, that it would be really, really tough for, like, Rattle or anyone to be able to make that sort of video, because you just don't have that big enough sample size, which is even scarier when you think about it, right? And it's the same way as that million eBay feedback seller. There's a world that exists where the 100 negative feedback on that eBay actually were scammed, or maybe they really did have like some really shitty experience, and their 100 negative feedback was justified. But at the same time, that would be the perfect crime, because nobody would ever believe those 100 negative feedback. The same way as I just said, if I saw a million feedback eBay score with 100 negative feedback, I'd be like, this guy is great, this is the best guy that ever exists. In a way, it's like becomes the perfect crime in this hobby, if that was the case. Civic, good to see ya. Peekapoo, what up? Peekapoo said, "What's a restock? What's the difference between restock and reprint?" So, like, restock would more refer to like Pokemon Center. So, Pokemon Center has a restock, where reprint means everybody's getting this product. Anybody who has distribution, any local LGSs, reprints, so mass allocations. They're going to be able to put their orders in. They're going to be able to ask for a certain amount. That's the difference between reprints and restocks. Jimmy said, "Happy Easter. Hope you have a good one." I hope you have a good one too. So, tomorrow is Friday. I have to get my backyard all ready. Like, it's winter times kind of still, so my grass hasn't really grown, but I have some trees that surround my backyard. So I'm gonna pick up all the sticks. I'm gonna like cut the grass just to make it like nice and level, because we're gonna do an Easter egg hunt on Saturday with my friends that all have kids. My friends, we have kids all around the same age. Like all my friends I grew up with are all my best friends. But then, because we're all super close, all our wives have become super close. So like our wives are in their own text message group, and then obviously I've been in the same text message group with my friends since like high school. Whenever I got my first cell phone was whenever text message groups existed, because we outdate text message groups by a lot. So, but yeah, that's gonna be what my Saturday is, and then Sunday we're just gonna do a Easter brunch at my aunt's house. So that would be fun. I hope you guys all have a good Easter too, for anybody that celebrates it. Uh, yeah. So Punch Drunk Kick says reprints are done by Pokemon, restocks are not. Yeah. Pokebondo said $40 Ghastly on TCG Player now. Yeah, wild. I mean, that's why it's part of the reason why it was in like my background of this video too. Uh, yeah, Snowy said, "Holy f, that Ghastly was $10 last week." That's why I said Saturday's gonna be fun. It's not even gonna be a full week, but we're gonna be able to compare prices from when I made that video. That's gonna be one of those videos that ends up aging really well. See, sometimes you get lucky. It's part of the title of this video. Luck don't fail me now. Sometimes you get lucky. I was lucky. Uh, James Bizzle says, "I'm late. How long has the live been going?" It's been going on for coming up on 48 minutes, my friend. Pokey Bondo says, "I'm avoiding Temple Force's singles for a bit. Too much volatility to feel comfortable buying these cards." Oh, yeah, tons of volatility, man. That's pretty wild. Especially when you look at the price per card versus the price per sealed product. Like, sealed product is getting kind of undervalued. I know pull rates are tough, but it's weird, Um, Pokebondo says, "I've seen some people open up booster boxes and pull $20 to $30 in return value. The pull rates being difficult and low supply." I mean, it depends. Like, Rattle opened up a few on his most recent live stream. He did some Temple Forces, and he had some pretty like healthy boxes that he opened. So it's all the luck of the draw, right? Like, don't ever open Pokemon cards to make money, but like sometimes the expected value gets relatively close to the sealed product value, and when that does happen, like you will start to see people open enough of this product to make sure that that's not a thing. The second the expected value gets anywhere as close to the actual sealed value, then people will make sure they kill that, and they will make that go away. So uh but yeah, guys, all right, anyways, love you, appreciate you. I appreciate you all tuning in every week for this entire year, guys. It's been pretty awesome. It's been a good ride. We're going to keep it going. Yeah, so Everybody have a good Friday. Happy Easter if I don't see you, but I might see you on Saturday. But other than that, guys, as always, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're new to this channel, you made it to the end of a 50-minute long live and you heard some maniac rant about random shit, and you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. But other than that, as always, I'll catch you on the next video.